All right, and we are live. Welcome, everyone, to episode 32 of Narrations and Lamentations with Mittierim and the Boys. I am your host, Mittierim, and with me is at least one and a half boys. We have Skip, and Michael is having some computer problems. He is trying desperately to get in. So Skip, go ahead and say hi, and Michael, if you can hear us, say hi.
Hello.
So we will still count this as a no Michael until his voice pops up. So we do excuse, we didn't want to let things go too late tonight, so Michael may be working out his technical difficulties in the opening minutes of the show. So hopefully that won't be too distracting for anybody. So tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. It is, instead of a full-on army review, we are going to start taking a look at the lores of magic in the Big Red Rulebook. And we decided, just because there's a lot of information here and we kind of want to take some time to discuss the individual lores, that we're dividing this into two shows. So tonight, we're going to discuss the first four lores. That's fire, beasts, metal, and light. We're going to kind of go through talking about their lore attributes, some of the spells, and kind of what we generally feel the usefulness or lack thereof of each lore is, and our general thoughts on it. So that's just what we're looking forward in the show from this point. First and foremost, though, let's go ahead and talk a little bit of hobby time. Skip, what you been working on this week?
In the 10 minutes I've had to paint, I have a peasant that I'm working on, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was to be ready for our next battle, but that ain't happening.
Just a rough time getting hours to paint, is that?
Yeah, it's been one of those weeks.
I feel you. Me too. The most recent thing I got, well, I'm not quite done with it yet because I still need to flock it with, or to put my static grass and whatnot on it to finish basing it, are 5 chameleon skinks. And I'm not super happy with them, but they're, like, I got a really cheap deal on some fine cast skinks, and they're pretty okay. I went with like a yellowy sand and blue. One thing that gets me, though, is apparently the chameleon skinks like strapping frogs to themselves, and it's very strange. Like, they have frog hats, they have frogs on their arms and legs. It's not like the frogs are like sitting on them like, hey, we're pals and everything. They're literally like tying the frogs to their bodies, which is just very odd.
Well, it ain't easy being green.
Right. Well, my skinks aren't green, but no. I guess the frogs are, so it still applies. And then I actually repainted some of the trolls that I have for the Warriors of Chaos Army. And I found something, and I made a mention to this in the PMP group. When I went to look at the trolls and get them ready for the repaint, I noticed some weird bulges that had been painted over, and I'm kind of looking at them, trying to figure out what they are. And it turns out that the fella who you got them from, because I'm assuming you weren't the one doing this, since I got the army from you, had actually glued 3 of the 6 trolls together with hot glue. So the bulges I was seeing were like these big pile-ups of hot glue. And then as I was looking closely, it had like that trail-off that you get if you've ever used a hot glue gun. And so rather than just cleaning it up, it looks like he just painted over it. So there was just painted bulges all over the place. So I had to attack the thing with a knife and cut the extra paint off, and it was a big hassle.
I'm a bad gluer, but I ain't that bad.
Yeah, I can't even think of like what would get somebody in the mindset to be like, hey, let's use hot glue gun on small plastic models.
I don't know. Maybe Vince has an answer for us.
Yeah. Apparently, Elise quoted this person saying, I'm a competition-oriented dick that needs it done now. Hot glue all over the place.
Hot glue for everybody.
But I can't imagine even somebody who's like competition-oriented would do that. Because there is no way there would be good paint scores on that particular glue job.
Oh. Wow.
But so that was a very frustrating little to do. So Michael is still bouncing back and forth. So let's go ahead and let's actually talk about the other thing. It's not technically us doing hobbying, but other things sort of in our gaming world. We've actually decided as a group to go in together and work on commissioning some more terrain pieces from Black Tower Terrain.
Mm-hmm.
If those of you who have been watchers for a long time have noticed, he was the one who did my maw pit for me. And he does great work, so we figured we can go in with the three of us and have more buying power and go ahead and fill in our holes in our terrain right before the new edition comes out and probably makes all of the terrain useless. Right? But,
we
right now,
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was about to say, we want the board to look really sweet, you know. I mean, hopefully with this new campaign coming up, all of our miniatures will be painted, Michael. And it will, oh, he's not here, sorry. But, you know, we want it to look the very best. So,
and I'm pretty sure he doesn't even go back and watch the shows, so even when he misses it.
I'll just tell him. I'll tell him later,
right. But, no, I'm definitely working on mine. Though, like, I think with the way I did mine, because I didn't power through my core all at once, like for everything I've got 1,000 points now, and now I'm just like at this point where I'm like, I need a break. I don't really want to work on Lizardmen right now. My brain is in other places, so I think it's probably best, like I've got enough where I could start the campaign right now, but I don't want to like push myself through it, because first of all, I'll end up like forcing myself through it when I'm not in a good mindset. And then by the time I get the itch to paint again, I'll have done it all, and that'll just piss me off. But two, I think I'll be happier with work if I wait until I'm actually interested to do it, since I don't really have anything pushing me to make it happen. So that's kind of my plan right now.
That's a good plan.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see if it ends up working. I'm trying to send Michael a text and see if he's still having issues or if he's just given up at this point. But yeah, so how is your choice making in terms of your armies going? I know at last we discussed it on the show. You were thinking wood elves and either one of your other armies. Have you narrowed that second army choice down at all?
Yeah, I'm decided to definitely go with the Bretonnians. So
okay,
which is what inspired me to work on some peasants now too. So to kind of get those up, I finally got my 100 blocks. So I want them all painted.
Right. Okay. He says he should be here in a sec, so I guess we can keep discussing just random bullshit until he gets here.
Oh, I'm good at that.
Right. So Skip tried to eat a razor blade today.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell that story, Skip?
We were in a hurry, you know, getting my wife off of work and getting something to eat before we went out. And I'm sitting here watching Netflix like I normally do and eating my salad. And then all of a sudden I hear a chomp. And I'm like, what was that? And then I spit a little part out, and it was like a little bitty piece of a razor blade, about that big. And it just so happened where I crunched it, it didn't do any damage to my gum or anything. I don't know. It was just one of those freak things that I just chomped on at the right spot where it didn't cut me or anything, but it was about that big.
Now, the best part of this story is what happened when you called the restaurant back and let them know. You gotta say that.
Yeah. So my wife calls first because she's more ticked off than I am, and she got the manager on the phone, and all the manager would tell her is that we can only comp one salad. Well, we bought two salads, and the other one, I guess, is fine because my mother-in-law was eating it. But she kept saying over and over again, we can only give you money back or we can give you another salad. You know, there was no empathy of, hey, you just bit down on a razor blade that shouldn't be in a salad. And two, are you dying? Is your tooth broken? Are you, like, oozing blood out of your mouth? No, she's just worried that we would ask for more than one salad.
Maybe I come from an old school of customer service, but bare minimum, if you are eating things that could potentially kill you,
Mm-hmm.
bare minimum is you get a comped meal. Bare
Right.
minimum.
So it's taken
That's awesome.
it's taken everything I've had not to blast them on social media. I guess I just did, but I'm not mentioning the name yet. But
Right.
so I get on their company website and I send this tirading small email, and then while I'm in church, the district manager calls and leaves me a voicemail. So apparently he's going to call me back tomorrow. But still, it's just the managers. You would think, oh, I'm sorry, sir. Can you bring your ticket back in? We'll at least comp your meal. I'm sorry this happened to you. No, we can only give you one salad.
That's funny.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's all right. I don't know. Michael said he was going to be in. Let's go ahead and get started, and
Okay.
with him, I guess he'll get on when he gets on.
He's
So
only got movement. He's only got movement 3, so it takes him a while to get places.
very nice. Doesn't his movement get upgraded now that he started playing the high elves, or are we still?
He's still a dwarf.
Okay. All right. So, first lore we're going to deal with is lore of fire. Now, what I kind of want to discuss is general thoughts on the lore. What armies or types of armies we think are sort of benefit most from that lore, and if there's anything particularly cool or disappointing about it. And we can go deep into the spells if we need to, but I'm kind of leaving it open to just kind of discuss what we want to discuss. Now, I'll get started with the fire because I think of the three of us, I have the most experience with it because I use it with my fire bellies all the time. So, my first take on fire is I know a lot of people give this lore a bunch of crap, just because it's not powerful or whatever. But I think in the right army list, it can be very good. The Kindle Flame ability of just being able to add D3 to the casting roll definitely is going to help you as you cast more and more. So I think it's a big benefit if you have a bunch of small casters of it to get Fireball, a couple of spells here and there. And I think in a world that we live in now with the lore of Undeath and the number of ethereal options on the board, I think having the kind of fiery damage with the piercing bolts of burning, the burning head, the fireball, the flaming sword of ruin, which makes your whole unit have magic attacks, I think it's definitely a good answer to a lot of ethereal chaff and bullshit showing up on the board. What do you think, Skip?
I agree. I have not used it. I think I may have used it once or twice in a game when I had Empire, just to test it out. But just looking at what I know now from the Wood Elves, there's a lot there that's flammable. My trees, dryads, things like that. And even looking at Tomb Kings a little bit, there's some flammable stuff there too. So against the right army, it could be very terrifying. Anyway. But you're right. I mean, it's a good answer to ethereals. It's a good answer to, doing extra just a little bit of damage here and there, especially if you do have those smaller, even level 1 casters that take the signature. And Fireball as a signature spell is awesome. I mean, you can have like 4 mages there who spend a little points, and they can all have that spell.
Well, and then you could do it even more because then you could give another one of the mages the ruby ring, and that's basically 5 fireballs a turn you can hurl that just get better and better because of the Kindle Flame the more of them you hit with.
Exactly.
So, the one thing I have to say that I think is lackluster is the quote-unquote bomb spell from fire. Flamestorm kind of sucks. On the plus side, it's good in that it's a low casting cost. You're looking at a 13. So even your level 2 mages, if you land it on one, have a good chance of casting it. So there's that. But it's just underwhelming. I mean, it's a pie plate. It's got 30-inch range, which is pretty good, and it only scatters a d6. But anybody that hits it, it's only a strength 4 hit, and that's it. And of course, it's flaming, so you've got to deal with some of the big things you want to hit with those bomb spells. Just are going to have flaming protection and what have you. But I don't know. It struck me as very lackluster, particularly compared to some of the other level 6 spells we're gonna be looking at as we go on.
And you touched on something right there. If you look through the Big Red Book, and even some of the other army books, it just is it me, or is it when they designed this, they gave you a 2. You can have like an item that gives you a 2-up ward save against fire. I don't see a 2-up ward save against electricity. I don't see a 2-up ward save against.
Hey, don't start there. The dragon ogres have 2-up against lightning, don't they?
Okay, I said good. I meant to say good units, but but still, when they sat down and designed it, I mean, I guess they were afraid of fire because if you look at it, that's the only one that's really getting that attention. I don't know if I'm expressing my point right, but
no,
you see where I'm going with it?
No, I absolutely agree, and I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, obviously you're going to expect to have more flaming in an army, more fire, because of the possible prevalence of regen. But I think because there are so many different ways to give there's 2 different items in the main book that give you fire resist. There's several 2-up save units. The elves have their dragon units. The dwarves have the flaming shot guys who are 2-up ward saves. You're right in that there's a lot of ways to just give any mage using lore of flame the finger, and that may very well contribute to a lot of why people think it's a crappy lore. There's certainly an argument that. Now, the other thing I will go ahead and say about this lore, and I know it's not necessarily about the lore itself, but users of this lore have 2 of the coolest models that I think mages have in the game. One being the Ogre Firebelly, because that's a freaking amazing model, and I love it to death. But 2 is one that I really wish I had for my Empire unit, but there's one in the little book where it's this wizard who's holding his hands up, and his whole upper body is engulfed in flames.
I saw that.
And I'm like, that looks like a cool model, but apparently it was some limited release, hard to get, maybe a Games Day thing. I don't know. So Michael says he thought he fixed it and doesn't know. So so that's another thing I kind of like the lore of Fire for, because those 2 models are cool. And again, I know that doesn't say anything to the lore specifically, but we'll do that. So, next lore we've got, I'll let you take the lead on this one, Skip, since you have used beasts more than any of us. Give us some thoughts on the beast magic.
Well, I mean, if you look at beasts, I mean, it works really well with what I have, especially Bretonnia, because, well, one, you get Wiston's Wild Form is also a very good signature spell. I mean, it's going to give you +1 strength, +1 toughness, and for puny little humans, that's gonna help out tremendously. And as we found in our last game, even though we kind of did it wrong, Transformation of Kadan can be really, really cool. You turn your poor little mage into this big, gigantic chimera or dragon or something like that. I mean, wow. Yeah. and it's only at a 16, 16 plus, so you actually have a chance of getting it off.
Yeah. Now, I will go ahead and say we were corrected in that on the last battle report, in that you have to be on foot.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and call BS on that. While I understand the idea is you don't want, dudes on monsters turning into things, or maybe even in monstrous cav, but I think normal cavalry should be able to change. Because I think with what, for something for Bretonnia, there's only so many lores they get, and you're limiting them out of the level 6 spell of that just because your mages on horseback can't turn. I think that's bull. But go ahead, continue.
And I mean, even if you do like me and you're starting to experiment with the paladin wall and hero wall, you throw Savage Beast on them. I mean, they can wreck pretty much any face on the board. I think it's a very useful lore. I think I don't think we've really played with the Wild Heart feature to it. If we have, I don't seem to remember it a lot. So it doesn't stand out like some of the other types. But
well, it's one of those things that, I mean, it factors into the math behind the scenes instead of doing something cool.
Right.
Which is actually my biggest issue with the lore of beasts, is I find their lore attribute to be a little lackluster. I mean, yay, casting is reduced by 1 on beastmen, cavalry, monstrous beasts, all that. But I mean, really, with the exception of Transformation of Kadan, none of their spells are really all that hard to cast. So I don't necessarily know that dropping that by 1 is all of a big deal.
No.
As a side note, I do want to give it a try with my ogres sometime. I want to drop Savage Beast of Horos on an ogre group of ogre characters and just watch the bloodshed.
No.
But I typically, it's one of those weird things. Is I think because you have made use of it so much, I've not done so. Because I mean, it's one of the base lores that the ogres get, and I've just never really used it. I think I used it once or twice early on when we were still playing that first campaign we did before we started the channel. But I really just, I guess, I don't know if I want to say it's underwhelming, but I don't know that it meshes with my playstyle well, which sounds like a stupid thing to say now that I've said that out loud, because it's like, well, dumbass, what playstyle do you have that a +1 to strength and toughness doesn't work well for? But I think more with the ogres, it's because you have to pay for the maw if you want something else. I think it's redundant. Maybe.
Well, the beast lore gives you a couple of good. I mean, it gives you a good debuff. It gives you a couple of good buffs. And if you don't have any shooting or any war machines, like the Wood Elves, you can take Amber Spear and it'll give you that option too. So, it's very flexible and it has a lot of good benefits for taking it for different aspects.
I have to say probably the one we haven't really touched on, but the one that has certainly done most for me in the few times I have played Beasts is Curse of Honor here. Not so much even the minus to hit rolls, but making everything, even open terrain, dangerous terrain, that you fail on a 1 or a 2 is just absolutely face-wrecking in the right situation.
Or if I'm rolling the dice, yes.
Right.
Yeah, because me and dangerous terrain. But we found out in the last game, we found out how good Flock of Doom could be.
I still don't think that was a good use of the spell. He cast it on a miscast, killed, 8 beastmen, but the miscast was a 4, so you detonated and lost more knights than you killed beastmen. I still don't think that's a win, Skip.
Yeah, I know, but it's
apparently,
still
so we just got a comment from Michael. Apparently he says, you know what's great? I can watch this on my phone, but I can't join the session. Arg, mother of a goat humper, arg. Oh, man, that sucks, dude. I noticed you keep kind of popping in and out. Keep trying, brother. We still got another hour or so in this show. We'll let you. With his luck, he'll show up in the last 2 minutes, right before we're saying bye bye. And Nicolas Belair mentions that flaming attacks are ubiquitous and historical.
They are historical. I agree with that.
They are. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I understand why, like, in game terms, they want to give those protections from fire, but I think because they didn't kind of buff up the fire lore to take advantage of that, or to take that into account, it ends up making the lore weaker than it necessarily should be. The other thing I noticed, interestingly, about both of these spells, or both of these lores, is neither one of them really has what I would consider a bomb-style spell. I mean, yeah, Savage Beast can be ridiculous in the right army build, but there's nothing like Dwellers Below or Pit of Shades or Purple Sun that's just like, screw you and the horde you rode in on.
Yeah, and that's the downside of transformation, because the next round they can dispel it, you know. So you got maybe one pop that you can do it, and if they don't, just they have the option of dispelling it next time, then you're back to
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's still it's still eating up some of your opponent's turn. I mean,
True.
maybe I don't know.
Mm.
It's weird. But well, I don't know. I like beasts. I just think, like, I think it's a good lore. I just don't think it's one of my favorites personally.
Mm.
So, would you like to talk about metal next, since I've had more experience with light, which is our fourth one?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've experimented a little bit with metal. I think it's a decent lore. I think it gives you, again, some options. It has a cool final transformations, one of the better spells that are out there. I mean, why wouldn't you like to turn your opponents into gold? Or something like that. But, and Searing Doom, I don't know. As a signature, I think that there are better ones out there. But you have Enchanted Blades, which is not bad. You can give yourself what is this? A Scaly Skin with the glittering robe if you don't have that option. So that gives you a little buff to your armor. So all in all, I think it's a good lore. It's not bad. It's not great. I think it's one of those that are right there in the middle.
I tell you, the thing that always got me about the metal lore is Plague of Rust being part of it. Like, I understand why you would want to do it, but being that your ability to do damage is based on, with the spell, is based on the armor save of your opponent, it seems weird that you would just be wanting to. One of the easiest cast spells in the lore makes it harder for your other spells to affect people. It strikes me as strange, but but part of me goes, it would be cool if they made glittering robes be one of those spells that you could take as a hex or an augment. So then you could use it to essentially make your opponents easier to wound with Plague of Rust too, or with Searing Doom, because it would give them a better armor save. Yeah. Nicholas Ballard is reminding us that flaming also exists in the banner that you give Domo's unit, and it causes fear in beasts and cavalry, etc. And yeah, absolutely, Nick. We're not saying that there's not flaming other than the lore. What we're saying is, because you obviously need protection from all of those other sources of flaming, by making that protection so easy to get, at the same time you're also weakening the lore of fire. And like I said, I don't know if that... I'm not going to come out and say that that's a bad thing. It's just one of those, as Vince likes to put it, second-order consequences of the ease of flaming in other forms, and then therefore the defense you need on it, and so on and so forth. It's... I don't think it turns, in my opinion, the lore of fire into something I wouldn't ever take. Though I do have to say, I've toyed with the idea of taking a fire belly with lore of undeath just for kicks. See what happens. I also think the other thing that I think is very lackluster in metal, getting back to what we were actually discussing, is transmutation of lead. It's a hex, 24 inches. It's a 12 up to cast, and it's a -1 to weapon skill, ballistic skill, and armor for a turn. And just looking at some of the other buff spell, I have a meh feeling about that one.
Well, I guess what is it? What, turning your weapon so heavy that you can't use it, or your armor so heavy you can't use it? Is that kind of the logic behind it?
Yeah, that's the theory.
Yeah, it just kind of, yeah, I don't want to keep using the word lackluster, but it doesn't encourage me to want to select that if I get a choice of a spell. It could be a whole lot better. It could be a D3 or something like that, like some of the other debuffs that are out there. I think if you do it at a D3 and then you up the casting cost a little bit to a D3 to every one of them, I think then maybe you're talking. But the way it is now, no.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I say the other spell that I have that like it looks good on paper and I want it to be awesome, but I've never seen it work well in the game, is the Gehenna's Golden Hounds. Like the idea of just like, let me snipe out a enemy model and hit him for D6 hits, but then they still get lookout, sir. So it's like, oh, okay, that's not good. That's basically, let me do D6 -1 on average. D6 -1 hits on a unit and 1 hit on the character I picked. So it's basically really only good targeting folks who aren't going to be very well defended, and I don't know. It seems lackluster to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, that could be so much better. You just get rid of the lookout, sir, and just use it as a snipe. There you go. That fixes it right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's the other thing too, is because it doesn't say what strength it is, so it uses the metal shifting thing, so you're only going to want to use it on people with high armor saves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess you're hoping that their high armor save characters don't have word saves. I don't know. Now, admittedly, the lore of metal, I think, is one that we haven't given a whole lot of focus on. I think I've used it more than anybody, just because of it's either that or lore of Tzeentch, and I really am unimpressed with lore of Tzeentch in general for my warriors guys. So, but all right, so I think we feel a general meh about lore of metal. Is that about what we're feeling?
It's not the worst, but it's not the best.
Okay.
It's just right. I think it's right there in the middle. So.
All right. So if anybody is a big lore of metal defender that wants to step up and tell us why we're idiots, feel free to do so in the comments.
Please.
The other thing about lore of metal too is that it has the same sort of weakness as lore of fire if you're looking for it to do damage, because all the hits are flaming too, right? Yeah, because the metal shifting lore attribute makes them all flaming.
Yeah.
So that's 2 lores that basically can get defeated by a 5-point magic item.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's another reason why the Gehenna's Golden Hounds suck too, because it's like you throw it on a general or somebody that has high armor save, the likelihood that they're going to have the Dragonbane gem or whatever is pretty good. So. Mm-hmm. But now, going on to the last lore we're going to overview in this show, and what I think is easily the best of the first 4 lores, Lore of Light. I think the only thing that's even mildly about this lore is Exorcism, just because it's awesome if you're playing the right armies, because you're going to get the extra damage, but if you're not, it's worthless. But Light makes up for it with just a solid selection of spells. Shem's Burning Gaze is a solid magic missile. Noteworthy mainly because of how low it is to cast. I mean, you're looking at a 5-up for Shem's. That's hard to beat. Foz Protection is a great defense spell. Speed of Light, I mean, who doesn't like Weapon Skill 10, Initiative 10? Light of Battle, which is what I have to say is probably the weakest of the spells in the list, And that's saying something, because it just goes, you get to rally or you auto-pass leadership tests. And that's freaking amazing. Net of Ammon talk is solid, although it's probably a competitor for worst spell in the list. But Banishment is one of the best damage-doing spells. I mean, it basically makes the Light Council build work. And Briona's Time Warp has saved my butt personally more times than I can count. I mean, just extra attacks, extra movement, always strikes first. It's as Lord Tremendous likes to say, it's the best parts of the Bible. And I have a hard time even making an Empire list without a Wizard of Light. Like, I don't like doing it. And I don't usually do the Light Council thing. I just think one level 4 of Light, getting decent spells, I mean, that's the synergy with the Empire troops is just ridiculous.
Well, if you look at it too, GW apparently likes light because it created, what is it, the River of Light that gets light spells. I mean, it's the only lord I think that's coming to my mind that gets their own piece of terrain. So
I think what we need to do from now on is whenever we roll up River of Light, we just need to randomize the lore on it and just see what happens. Make it like the River of Fire, River of Metal, just to see what the effect of changing it up is.
I'm all for that. That would be neat.
Get, like, River of Death, and then you just snipe your own characters trying to cross it. But
well, we all know how Michael feels about the River of Light anyway, so I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind that.
I'm waiting for the comment from him because he's still watching the show on his phone and can't get on. So I'm waiting for him to start ranting in the comments about the River of Light. So yeah, all right. So of these four, next thing I kind of want to talk about before we get into the questions is what type of army and what type of build do you think utilizes each of these lores the best? So let's start with Fire. What do you think is the best list or the best army to take Lore of Fire?
That's a toughie, actually.
Holy crap! Michael showed up.
Well, we were talking about River of Light.
Right. Can you, man? Because you're just all we're hearing is feedback from you.
Now we're not hearing.
Right, I think he's just going to be on to make sounds.
No. Yeah, I think I'm here.
Yay!
Okay, goodness gracious. That only took him 54 minutes to solve his computer problems and get on. Way to go, sir. So I guess before we go on to this next question, general thoughts on the four lores we were discussing since you were watching it.
Fire, metal, have we gotten to, what was it? I know light was next. What was,
Yeah, Beast and Light are the other two we're discussing tonight.
Oh, okay. Light, awesome. Beast, depending on army, can be great.
Okay. Well, that's a good lead-in, because now we're talking about what you think the best army to use the Lore of Fire is. That's the first lore we're going to discuss.
The best army to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a great army that can use it. I'd say best army to use it against is Mono Nurgle or Skaven Heavy, because they got a lot of stuff about regen.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I think the Empire can make really great use of Lore of Fire because of their cheap wizards. I think because of the Kindle Flame thing, I think you can actually do like a Fire Council where you buy 4 or 5 cheap wizards, you give them Fireball, and really that's all you need, and then you're just firing. You're throwing less dice because you're using the Kindle Flame.
Right.
and you can just get a lot of damage off. Now, is that necessarily the best use for an Empire army? Probably not, but I can't think of another army I think can use fire inherently better.
Oh, no, the dwarves. Because, we got the whole, Laura Fire.
Right, so how many mages can you take with the Lore of Fire?
Just that one really expensive one. He only really gets one spell.
Right. So Lore of Beasts. What do you think is the best army to utilize Lore of Beasts for its maximum effect?
Bretonia.
It is hard to turn away the effectiveness of Savage Beasts of Horos on a 3-wide paladin wall.
About that, the fact that you can buff your peasant men to 4 strength, 4 toughness dudes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you turn them into dwarves and how they cost dirt cheap because they're peasants.
Yeah. I do have to say, interestingly enough, I also think that Bretonia is the best army to use beasts against. Between Amber Spear and Curse of Honor here, you can really, like, if you get those spells off early, you can control where the Bretonians are going to move, and you can punch through their armor. And because the Bretonians are so reliant on getting that charge, if you can Pan's Impenetrable Pelt, like your heroes and Savage Beast, and make it so that the Bretonians can't kill on that initial charge, it becomes very much an uphill battle for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So, what about Laura Metal?
Do you play a lot of dwarves against you? I mean, I guess for us, it's okay because I play a lot of dwarves, but even then, my highest save is a 3-up typically.
Yeah. I do have to say, I have been given some thought, because I mean, we all know that when I get my Slann into our next game, I'm going to be playing Lore of High Magic, and you let your spells switch out. So I was thinking of actually switching pretty heavy into Lore of Metal, just because, I mean, Final Trans gives you a great bomb spell.
Yeah.
The Enchanted Blades, like, +1 to shoot in close combat attacks, like, just throwing that on Skinks. And it's like, alright, now my Skinks have +1 to hit, and they have armor piercing on their blowpipes.
Yeah.
I mean, it can help. Glittering Robe's pretty useless because they all have scaly skin already. But it can help. I think to a certain degree the Lizardmen have trouble dealing with armor. And so there's some ways that metal can help that. I don't know that I would like exclusively take my Slann as metal, but I think it's a good splash lore for them.
Yeah.
Or has the capability of being a good splash lore. So yeah, Vince says metal is almost a skew lore in and of itself. It can be such a miss sometimes, whereas sometimes it's a complete win. It's like its own little skew list in one lore of magic. A big piece of paper, but only if your enemy brought rock. No argument here, which is, I think, why I feel that it's a better lore to use with something like the Slann spell switch thing. So then, if I find myself coming against something where metal's not helpful, I'm not stuck playing that. I still have the light lore, and I can switch it, or the high magic lore, and can switch it to different spells. But so, lore of light. What's the best list for it?
Empire.
I concur.
It gives them so many needed tools.
Yeah, it just solves so many problems for them. Though I gotta say, I would love to figure out a way to let orcs and goblins take it. Could you imagine
no,
like a big 50-man brick and night goblins catching Briona's time warp and speed of light?
No.
Just like, you're all dead.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of what armies I have that can take it other than Empire. I think that Empire and Lizards, because lizards can take everything. But
Mm-hmm.
what others are there any other armies that specialize in it?
Not
Um,
specialized, I don't think.
Right. The Tomb
Um,
Kings can take it, isn't it? One of their lures.
it is.
yeah,
Mm,
and I think all but the Dark Elves can take it. Dark Elves can take it, can't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
What else can too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
certain
the
high
elves
elves,
can just because
Mm,
they
fucking
know
elves.
all of the
where
magic.
else? Yeah.
It's
So
another one of
elves
those
wasn't
weird
in
ones that
Empire.
it's another one of those weird ones that Bretonia can't take, isn't it? Because I mean, Bretonia
Yeah.
just gets beasts, heavens, and
Now on death. Yeah.
well, they get one other,
Yeah.
isn't it? They get beast, heavens, and life. That's the other.
Life. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like
And
it's weird that they don't get light.
well, and you can only get heavens if you're a prophetess. You can't even the smaller, the damsels can't take it. They can only take beast or life
I kind of like
or
that
undead.
though. It gives like some difference other than this is my +2 to cast person. This is my +1 to cast person. So
Mm-hmm.
on and so forth.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Empire makes arguably the best use of the armies that can take it. They make arguably the best use of light. Just because I mean the elves can all take it, but the elves already pretty much have a leg up.
I mean, how many
Um,
other spells? How many others are going to matter? Oh, I get dropped to initiative 10, or I get ASF. I already
yeah,
have that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The extra attack's nice, but I'm attacking in 5 ranks anyways,
And Vin
or
says
4
that the
ranks.
Tomb Kings can also run a pretty solid light council. So they have great caster buff tools, and the buffs can do amazing things with a troop like Tomb Guard. Oh yeah, I absolutely
Yeah, I
agree.
agree. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the trick with light is the crappier your troops are, the better that lore is, because it's not like a flat bonus like Beast is, where it's just like +1. It's just we're going to take you all the way up to the top. So the less you're paying for each troop that's going to be the target of that spell, it's a force multiplier, I guess is a better way of talking before I ramble on. Um, so I think Tomb Kings and Empire definitely get a heck of a lot of use out of that.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I agree.
So, we're getting on to the point where we need to go to our questions. We didn't get too many questions this time, but any that pop up that we didn't answer will be answered next week when we handle the last 4, which is life, heavens, shadow, and death.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah. I think we'll have more in general to talk about during that show. Um, so, first question from Vince, and this is a generalized spell. Bomb spells, good or bad?
Both.
All right, explain.
If you're playing against a horde army, you've got to have bomb spells. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to take a horde army without a bomb spell. A horde of ogres, for instance. There's not much that can take that on in combat. But
Mm-hmm.
you drop a purple sun on it, and you have less to worry about. Now, if you're playing a smaller game, and you've got 9-man ogre units, it's pointless to use.
Right. So let me throw this at you because this was one thought I had. I generally don't like the bomb spells. But
No.
what if they made bomb spells scalable so that they could still deal with the big units? And by that I mean, like, I know there's 1 or 2 spells where it's like you do X amount of hits based on the number of ranks in a unit.
Right.
What if they changed it to be like number of files in a unit? So that, like, if you're in a normal unit, you're going to take 5 hits or 5 of X effect, whatever it is. But if you're in a horde, that's going to be 10 of X effect.
Yeah, I mean, that helps solve it to a point, but then people just start going, oh, and I'm now in a 5 front and 10 back. It's like columns.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think there's
It would
always
help.
certain. I think there's always certain mathematical benefits to having more dudes in a unit just under the current rules. So I
Yeah.
think that the trick is making the bomb spells so they can still be helpful against those big units, but they don't instantly just like wipe stuff off the board.
Exactly.
Because I mean, it sucks if somebody just like purple suns your whole line and boom, there goes everything you own.
I know that feeling.
As do I. It's not one of my warm and fuzzy moments.
No, it's a knuckle bad touch.
Yeah. So what about you, Skip? Good or bad for the bomb spells?
Well, I think they're okay. I hate taking them. I really do. I think, you know, having, your entire, even though I think Final Transformation is a really cool spell, I still say, having your entire, or half your army turn into lead and there's really nothing you can do about it. It's just, I think sometimes it detracts from the fun of the game, to be honest with you.
I do too, but on the other hand, I think there are certain times where you have to have it, or you've basically set yourself up to lose from the get-go. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're playing sort of an MSU unit or army or something like that, and then you're facing a giant horde of dudes, and it's like, there's literally nothing I can do to this unit, I need to thin them down. Mm-hmm. And I think the real problem comes, like we were just discussing, is that ability to thin down a small unit is also the ability to, or thin down a big unit, is the ability to completely destroy a small unit. And I think that's the bigger issue, where it's just like, I'm going to cast this one spell and it's just going to pick up half your army and throw it in the garbage can.
I'd almost say a way to fix that is to make them limited to hitting just one unit. So that way you can hit a horde, but if somebody's got like 10, 20 man units, you don't bounce through the entire line.
So make it like, with Purple Sun, it would be like it goes through and then you choose one unit that it passed over.
Like the Flamespire Phoenix's ability, where you can fly over multiple units, but you pick only one to effect.
Yeah. I could see something like that working. But again, I don't know. So it's one of those things. I think it's hard to determine what effect that would have. Like once you ease up on that big the possibility of the bomb spell, do you open up the possibility of big units going crazy, or like multiple medium-sized units? Like you don't have the big 40 hordes, but you have 2 or 3 units of like 30 guys? I don't know.
I mean, you remember, I took 4 30-man units to Ballers.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you do? Oh, speaking of which, where is your hat?
I have it next to me. I figured I'd wear it for the next show since I got here with like 30 minutes to go. And if you want, I can wear it now.
What do you think, Skip? Should we let him wear it now, or should we get 3 full shows out of him?
We've got to do 3 full shows.
See.
Okay.
Just so everyone can see.
Alicia doesn't like you. She says you have to put it on now and do 3 full shows.
That's messed up. That's rude.
I'll let her know you said that. All right, so number 2, and we touched on this a little bit. I love it.
Let me get that in the full shot there.
Yeah, you gotta. That's beautiful. Turn it forward so Snow White is up front. Because that was the whole reason we got it, is because there were 7 dwarves at Brawlers. So
there were way too many fucking princesses on this.
Yeah. Welcome with 2 daughters. Welcome to everything in my house. I mean,
I can feel your pain.
Yeah. Typically, though, I don't wear the princess stuff.
I don't get much of an option in that.
Awesome. No, you don't. All right, so let's continue now that we're all properly attired. So Vince's second question is, why don't more people use Transformation of Kaidan? I mean, you can turn into a freaking dragon.
My point exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a great spell. Problem is, the ability to dispel it makes it very difficult to use correctly. Because, I mean, yeah, some of those monsters are really scary, but you do a couple of wounds to it in combat, and then your opponent is one dispel roll away from losing a mage. And
I
the
mean,
fact that you basically have to give up your wizard while you're doing it. Maybe it would be cooler if you could cast it on other casters. Or other characters.
that would be neat.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like, here is my little dude, and just random like fighter guy I put together with no wounds. Boom! There's a dragon.
I mean, it worked the same way that Beastman magic works, where it's pretty
Mhm.
much everything within a certain area we can go, hey, you now are D6 strength, D6 attack.
Maybe if I get more skink priest models, I'll try that. I'll just crap out a bunch of little skink priests in the hope that I get a transformation Kadon and just run around, turn it into a big freaking dragon from this little lizard guy. I don't know.
If you do that, you
It's
have to paint up one of the dragons that looks like Charizard.
no. But yeah, I think the issue is that it has to be the wizard casting it, and the likelihood of getting it off means it's almost certainly going to be a level 4. Then once you cast it, the level 4 can't channel or cast spells, and none of their magic items work. And so I think it's a cool spell, but I think there's a lot of downsides to it. And I think that's why you don't see it very often. So, number 3, and this kind of goes back to our fire discussion earlier. Fire gets crap for not being a very competitive lore. Is this fair? What cool spell would you see added to fire that would make it more appealing, even if not necessarily more powerful?
Have it take away the flaming rule on one of its spells?
Have it take away flaming?
I mean, flaming is, in this edition, terrible. Everybody's got 2-4s against it. I mean, they even gave dwarves a unit that had a 2-4 against it.
Mm-hmm.
The
I
best.
tell you, the one thing it blows my mind that the Floor of Fire doesn't have is a breath weapon template spell.
Right, it does.
Why is there not a spell that lets you breathe fire? I mean, I think like the Burning Head is a lame spell. I think you should take that away and basically turn that, like, have that be a spell that basically gives you either a breath weapon or like a flamethrower style attack where you drop it and push it forward.
Yeah.
But it just absolutely boggles my mind, with as prevalent as breath weapons are in the game, that Lore of Fire doesn't give you one.
That is a little weird.
You know, one thing you could do is maybe change the bomb spell, the number 6, to something like immolate or something like that, where it doesn't give you it affects you, but you don't get any saves of any kind against it. But you have a higher cost to it, kind of like transmutation of lead, or final transmutation. I mean, where you don't get a save against it; it just happens. You know. That way you can kind of bypass that, but it's going to cost you something to do it.
Yeah. Now I would tell you one of the things I think would be kind of neat, and it's from our D&D game this week. I have an enemy fire mage that ended up using a spell in 2nd edition D&D that can only be cast on somebody who's taken a wound from cutting, like if they're bleeding, and it basically set their blood on fire. And so I think like having a spell like that could kind of be cool as sort of a damage multiplier. And the idea is like you throw it on a unit, and as long as that unit is on there, the unit suffers like every time they suffer a hit, they suffer additional hits. That way it would be helpful in not only multi-wound stuff, but you could throw it on there and then go to your shooting phase and just like open it up, and then people were just like exploding into little fireballs and killing their friends. Which the image there just strikes cool. But that would be where I would go. One of those two things is where I would go for coolness factor in terms of the lore fire.
Yeah.
Ooh, and Vince actually loves the breath weapon idea. He said, how about a remains in play that's as long as it's up, you can make a breath weapon attack each round.
Ooh.
That could be sexy. That could be very sexy, actually. The other thing I would like, and this is another one for second ed D&D lovers, like their level 6 spell should be like Flaming Sphere, where it makes a little flaming sphere and it hangs around, and it moves every turn. It's like random movement, but the caster gets to nominate the direction. Like, that would be cool too, I think. And it would give them something unique, because, I mean, all of the other template spells that stick around, like, just randomly move. So I think it would be a very cool ability for the mages to be able to kind of shape that and make it go in the direction they want it to. So any other potential cool fire spells from you fellas?
No, I kind of want that flaming sphere now.
You could almost modify Flamestorm to do that. Maybe increase the casting cost a little bit.
Yeah, like that could be it. Like, instead of doing the bigger template when it increases, just be like, you cast it on a 16 plus, it remains in play, and at the beginning of each turn it moves an artillery die worth of inches in a direction nominated by the caster. Boom, done.
Done.
Yeah.
There you go.
I may need to do another Mittierim Fixes Warhammer. All right, so the next one is Nicholas Belair, and he says, do you think the trend to give armies access to more and more general lores is good or bad? Or was the old system where more armies had their own lore and access to only a few books of lore more flavorful?
I'm a fan of the old system.
I think the old system makes it more flavorful. I think the new system makes it easier for new players to get in. When you limit the number of special extra things that a new player has to learn to enjoy the game, that's good, but I definitely think you do lose some of the flavor of the armies when you take away their special rules or their special lores.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only people who've got special lores now is what? The elves.
And
No, the Maw, and I think the Y.
I
guess it's more not thinking
orcs
of.
and goblins have two lores.
Mm-hmm.
The ogres have a lore. Undead has a lore.
Yeah. Okay.
Nehekaran and vampires.
Beastmen have a lore.
I guess the elves, you can count light and dark as theirs with the lizard men. So there's like 7 individual lores. Yeah. Alicia's in the other room complaining about the wood elves losing their lore, the lore of Athaloran.
Mm-hmm.
They lost everything else. Don't feel bad.
Right. But yeah, I would definitely say I think there is something flavor-wise that's lost when you don't have specialist magic. Like, I think it's like, I understand that they're aiming for the elves to be sort of the neutral elves, but the idea of being like they get both good and evil magic, basically, the high and the dark, is just a little weird.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would love for Bretonia to have their own lore. It just doesn't make any sense why they don't. I mean, I would love to build that. I think we discussed it at one time. They did have their own, didn't they?
I don't recall. If it was before my time. I don't even necessarily know that they need their own lore, but I think they should have something like the Empire Battle Priests, where there's sort of the followers of the lady that get the special sort of bound spells that are very focused on kind of what she is focused on.
Josh, there's already followers of the lady. They're called elves.
Oh, burn.
That being said, you could treat. I think I could also fix the Grail Knights too. You could treat them almost like your the Brolocks or something like that, where they get something special by being the Grail Knights. Maybe they have access to 1 or 2 spells or something like that as part of the unit itself.
That could be kind of interesting, like Brolock Grail Knights. Yeah.
Yeah, something to that. Something like that.
Yeah.
That could be interesting. We might have to play with that idea a little. I do like that, like the thing that they introduced with the Brolocks and the sisters, in that you can have units that are sort of pseudo casters without necessarily having to make them full on like roll to generate spells, kind of wizards. Like there's something about that that's kind of cool. So last question here, and this one's from John Tailby. He says, "How come elf and Slann magic users are no better than a human?" He says, "How come elf and Slann magic users are no better than human magic users?" I would disagree that that's the case, but
yeah, I would too. Let me just for the high elves I play, high magic, I'm automatically at a +1, so my casters are always better at casting high magic than you ever will be at casting your magic. I have lore masters, so I can take basically all 8 lores and go, I want to use this spell. Well, the signatures. And then I walk into a building and go, and I know everything.
Yeah. Not to mention, I think the specialty, the lores for high magic, the lore attributes for the lizard men and the elves are pretty sexy.
+1 ward saves? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dark elves.
I mean, you got to remember, too, John. Yeah, you got to remember. Like, I don't think the 8 magic lores are really the purview of the elves and the Slann. They're sort of just a side effect that they found out while learning about the real magic. And so, why not be just as good, or not? Why not pass that down to the humans? Because that's not really the important stuff. And I too think, like, particularly with the Slann, you can go with all the benefits that they can get, the different meditations. Yeah, I mean, there's Slans and human mages are very different creatures, and it's helpful that the Slans have that built-in 4-up ward. That makes me happy.
Nice.
So. Apparently, Nicholas Belair says that your Grail Knight's 2 buffs from the Lore of Light is a great idea.
Maybe then I could use them right.
Well, I could see, like... I'm trying to think. Like, what I could see the lore... The 2 spells for the Grail Knights being... is you give them Speed of Light, and then, which one is it? Harmonic Convergence. And then it's just like, we are super badass warriors. We bless ourselves to weapon skill 10, initiative 10, and then with Harmonic Convergence, we get to reroll to hits, to wounds, and armor saves of 1. Because the lady's just protecting us like that.
I can see that.
And that would make them super butch. And it would kind of support the whole idea, like the others, that you don't get both of your spells from a single lore. Because I don't think any of them work like that so far. I think they all pick from 2 different lores.
You're right.
So that would be my general thought on that.
Well, I mean, as much points as you have to pay for them anyway, they need something else to justify it, because right now they're why would I take them?
Yeah.
Because
The
you're
only reason
Skip and you
I know.
and you have an allergic reaction to winning. So
I just take them for fluff reasons anyway.
Nicholas also calls out that the elf salon versus human thing is just a game mechanics versus fluff thing. Same goes for core spearmen. Elves have a better stat line, but they've been training for 500 years compared to a human.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So I take the old like second ed D&D thing. Humans can go up to infinite levels, but the elves can be around for longer. They're just not capable of getting that much better. So you have to have that 500 years for this light little bump up. And Nicholas Belair was asking Vince if when we were talking about the remains in play breath weapon idea, would it be in shooting, in the magic, or combat? I think it would be good if you can make it once each round. So if you use it in your close combat, or if you use it in your shooting, you only get one use of it. Either way you want to use it. But other than that, it acts just like a normal breath weapon.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, fellas. Well, I think that hits the end of our night. I guess we'll close up asking Michael, because you weren't around when we were discussing what we've been working on. What's been on your bench lately?
I just finished my first Lurian Reaver, the Scissors of Thorn model. Came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now that all my with all my test models done, I'm going to be working on the actual like infantry and finishing the ranks out.
Well, that's good. But here's the real question: do they have any frogs strapped to them?
No, because you already have frogs that you can put on them.
Right. So does that mean I can automatically get the extra frenzy attacks if I choose to attack my?
You can, as long as you don't
My
attach the
own
frogs to
freaking.
Silverhelm and think that your Riftdactyls can take them on, because apparently they can't.
That's
Poor
okay. They could take up
Reapers.
a Dryad either.
Yeah. Well, I made a mistake with that Dryad fight is I think I had enough room. I should have just leapfrogged, no pun intended, those freaking Dryads and went right into the flank of that other unit that I had frogged.
Mm-hmm.
I just totally
Yeah.
forgot about them being flyers, or I didn't look and think about it. But that's just me not knowing how to play with my new freaking army. So, there were a couple other comments that just I think are people talking to each other and not us. So I think this may bring us to a close, fellas. So, as far as what to expect in the next coming weeks, next week we are going to continue on with, for the show, the last four lores and kind of discuss that. After that, I got no freaking idea what we're going to do. So, if anybody has any things they would like to hear us yammer about for an hour or so, feel free to pipe up in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to discuss that. In terms of the narrative, this week, i.e. tomorrow, we are getting together for our second to the last game of the current campaign. So it's going to be Michael and I are going to be teaming up. He's going to take 1,500 points of my Empire. I'm going to take 1,500 points of the Ogres. And we're going up against 3,000 points of Evil Bretonians. So that should be super exciting. I'm very much looking forward to that.
And no Grand Army rules.
And no Grand Army rules, so we won't be getting beat to death by 4 trebuchets.
By laser-guided trebuchets, but apparently they've been loaded with pillows.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For anyone wanting the story about that, go watch my last battle report. It was pretty ridiculous.
It was sad. It was super sad.
But though I will have to say, Skip, I'm kind of surprised you didn't do a video talking about that one, because that may have been your best played Bretonia game
that was
ever.
I may still do it. I just hadn't had the time this week. Really, just hadn't had the time. But I'd love to do something like that. I may do a follow-up one tomorrow since I'm off.
Yeah. All right, so other than that, so that gives you guys kind of an understanding of what you're going to be seeing from us in the future. Again, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, be more than happy to touch base on any of them. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. Beyond that, we'll see you guys next week so that we can have more enjoyment of Michael's headgear. And thank you guys for watching. You fellas want to say anything before we kill this?
No, I got nothing. I'm lazy dwarf.
Right.
Isn't Michael pretty in pink?
Yes, he is pretty in pink.
Damn, Skippy, I'm pretty in pink.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, we'll catch everybody next week. Bye-bye, guys.